The hot afternoon sun painted long, lazy shadows across the cracked pavement of a nearly empty parking lot outside Joe's Roadhouse Diner, a humble spot that had weathered 35 years of shifting winds along Route 67. The clock ticked past 2:30 p.m., the lull between the lunch rush and the evening crowd, when the world outside seemed to hold its breath. Staff Sergeant Liam Hayes eased his dark blue Chevy Silverado into a corner spot, gravel crunching under the weight of the heavy truck. Fresh from a grueling morning drill at Camp Pendleton, Liam's body ached with that satisfying burn that only came after pushing past his limits. At 34, he was in prime condition, a necessity for a Marine Raider who had seen 4 tours in the Middle East. Towering at 6'3" with a frame built from years of combat training, Liam's quiet strength radiated from every step, the kind earned through battles both on and off the field. The soft chime of the diner doorbell announced his arrival. Adjusting his faded gray t-shirt, which clung to his broad chest, he welcomed the cool blast of air conditioning, a sharp contrast to the blistering California heat. Behind the counter, Maggie, a weathered but warm-hearted waitress in her early 60s, flashed a smile as familiar as the scent of fresh brewed coffee. "Afternoon, sugar," she greeted, grabbing a laminated menu. "Sit wherever suits you." Liam slid into a back corner booth, his habitual choice. Old instincts died hard. The position gave him a full view of the door and side exits, his back firmly against the wall. Years in the field taught him that awareness wasn't paranoia, it was survival. The diner had a sparse crowd, a couple of long-haul truckers at the counter and an elderly pair sharing a quiet meal near the front. Soft country music flowed from overhead speakers, Merle Haggard's voice blending with the comforting aroma of bacon, coffee, and something frying on the griddle. The smells brought a wave of nostalgia, memories of his grandmother's kitchen on lazy Sunday mornings. Maggie returned with a glass of ice water, setting it down with practiced ease before taking his order. Double bacon cheeseburger, extra fries, and black coffee. As she walked back to the counter, Liam's eyes caught a small yellow ribbon pinned to her apron. Behind the counter sat a framed, sun-bleached photo of a young Navy sailor. Later, he'd learned that Sailor was her son, serving his 3rd deployment overseas. Liam pulled out his phone, thumbing through messages. One from his sister reminded him about their dad's retirement party next weekend. Another from his superior outlined tomorrow's training brief. He quickly replied, then skimmed local headlines. His coffee arrived, steam curling from a chipped ceramic mug that had probably outlived half the town. He poured in a splash of cream, stirring absent-mindedly as he gazed through the wide front windows. Route 67 stretched endlessly, shimmering with heat waves that turned asphalt into liquid silver. Maggie soon returned with his burger, the plate overloaded with golden fries. "Made sure you got extra, hun," she teased with a wink. "Looks like you could use the fuel after a tough morning." He thanked her, a polite smile in return. Around town, locals easily spotted military folk, even out of uniform. Camp Pendleton wasn't just a base, it was the heart of the community, a thread woven through countless families. As he dug in, the quiet hum of the diner felt almost surreal compared to where he'd been just a few months prior. The gentle spin of ceiling fans replaced the deafening rotors of helicopters, and the only thing he had to worry about was whether the burger hit the spot. He savored these slices of normalcy, acutely aware of how fragile peace could be. Through the window, the afternoon traffic grew. A few cars rolled into the gas station across the street, a delivery truck thundered past. Everything felt routine, the kind of day where nothing remarkable happens. Yet Liam's trained senses caught the subtle things others missed. The new security cameras, the way Maggie's eyes darted toward certain customers, the well-worn baseball bat tucked behind the counter. All signs of past trouble. The calm shattered as 3 motorcycles thundered into the parking lot, their engines growling like caged animals. The rumble vibrated through the windows, Maggie stiffened, her hand hovering near the phone. The bikes, tricked-out Harleys with chrome skulls and black flames, oozed menace. Each one cost more than the diner's monthly take. Their riders, members of the notorious Iron Vultures MC, were local legends of the worst kind. Their logo, a grinning skull crowned with iron wings, signaled trouble. First through the door was their leader, known only as Viper. He stood a solid 6'5", his thick silver beard reaching down to his chest, faded tattoos snaking up muscled arms like relics of past sins. Two others followed, a stocky, broad-shouldered man with a bald head known as Tank, and a younger guy with jet black hair tied back in a loose ponytail. People called him Cobra. As the trio entered, the elderly couple near the front rushed to pay their bill, leaving a generous tip as a silent apology to Maggie. The truckers at the counter suddenly found their coffee cups fascinating, eyes down, trying to melt into their stools. In an instant, the relaxed hum of the diner turned taut with tension. Liam took another bite of his burger, but his senses sharpened, military training kicking in like second nature. Without drawing attention, he cataloged the bikers' movements, noted potential weapons hidden under leather vests, and mapped out paths to both exits. His muscles coiled, ready for whatever might come, but his expression stayed calm, neutral. Tank's eyes landed on Liam, sizing him up instantly. The squared shoulders, upright posture, it screamed military. A wicked smirk crawled across Tank's lips as he elbowed Cobra and nodded toward the booth. The bikers strolled through the diner, their path intentionally weaving toward Liam. "Well, look what we got here," Tank rasped, his voice roughened by years of cigarettes. "A real-life G.I. Joe." The others laughed, the sound hollow and menacing, bouncing off the linoleum walls. Maggie, trying to diffuse the brewing storm, approached with menus. "Gentlemen, grab any seat you'd like. Fresh coffee's on." Her voice was steady, but a slight quiver betrayed years of dealing with their kind. Tank ignored her completely, leaning against the booth beside Liam. Leather creaked as he moved, the air thick with the scent of exhaust fumes and stale smoke. "Hey, soldier boy," Tank drawled, eyes narrowing. "Enjoying your meal in our diner?" Liam wiped his mouth slowly with a napkin before speaking, his voice low and even. "It's a public place," he replied, tone measured. "Pretty sure Joe owns it, not you." Cobra stepped forward, eyes flashing, but Tank shot him a glance that held him back. The leader studied Liam carefully, recognizing the absence of fear. One of the truckers started to stand, then thought better of it and sank back down. The room held its breath, eyes fixed on the booth. Liam rose slowly, his movements deliberate, eyes locked on Tank. Though Tank stood taller, there was something in Liam's stance, an edge honed by real combat, that made the biker step back just a fraction. The soldier's gaze had shifted, steely and hard. "I think," Liam said, voice calm yet cutting through the silence, "we should handle this outside. No need to mess up Maggie's clean floor." Cobra and the younger biker exchanged nervous glances. They were used to intimidation tactics working. This quiet confidence threw them off balance. But backing down wasn't an option for Tank. "Outside it is, soldier boy," Tank sneered, masking his own unease. "Time to teach you some respect." As they walked out, Maggie's hands shook as she dialed the local sheriff. She'd seen enough to know where this was headed. Outside, the heat shimmered over the gravel lot. A few cars slowed on the highway, their drivers rubbernecking the scene. The Harleys stood gleaming under the sun, chrome still ticking from the ride. Tank took position in the center, dust rising with each step. The other two flanked him, forming a loose semicircle around Liam, a classic intimidation move. "Last chance, hero," Tank taunted, cracking his knuckles. "Get on your knees. apologize, and maybe you walk away." Liam's eyes moved between them, calm and assessing, his stance relaxed, almost casual, but beneath the surface his mind ran through scenarios like a well-oiled machine. He spotted Tank's limp, an old injury maybe. Cobra had a solid stance, likely some experience. The younger one shifted nervously, eyes darting. "Bullies, not trained fighters." "What's the matter?" Cobra taunted, trying to sound tough. "Scared, soldier boy." He flicked open a switchblade, the blade glinting. Inside, Maggie and the truckers watched, phones out, recording. The tension was suffocating. Tank advanced, brass knuckles flashing. "Gonna enjoy this," he growled. Liam's voice cut through the heat. "Put those away," he said, calm as a coiled spring. "You're only making this worse." The bikers didn't back down. Tank lunged, but Liam saw the punch coming, a wild swing, all bluster, the kind of move that failed against real training. Time slowed. His body, honed by war, moved like instinct. They were used to victims freezing in fear or scrambling for the door when weapons came out. But Liam wasn't like their usual targets. Years in the Special Forces had shaped his body into a weapon and honed his mind to stay razor-sharp under pressure. Where others hesitated, Liam calculated. Every move the bikers made telegraphed their next step, like an open playbook. Through the diner's windows, the crowd watched, wide-eyed, as Liam stood there, unflinching, calm. Like a man waiting for a bus, not facing down three armed thugs. Tank charged first, brass knuckles raised, but Liam shifted just before impact. His eyes, which had been passive, now narrowed into a piercing focus. In that instant, the three men were about to learn the hard way why you never judge a book by its cover, and why you never pick a fight with a Special Forces vet. What followed happened so fast the onlookers could barely track it. Tank's punch whizzed past Liam's head, hitting only air as Liam sidestepped smoothly. Using the biker's momentum, he seized Tank's arm and sent him stumbling forward, straight into Cobra. The younger biker fumbled, dropping his switchblade onto the gravel as they tangled together. Razor swung his chain wide, aiming for Liam's head, but Liam had already read the move. He stepped inside the swing, where the chain had no power, and struck twice, a jab to Razor's solar plexus and a sharp kick to his knee. Razor's eyes went wide as he collapsed, gasping for air, the chain clattering beside him. "Stay down," Liam advised, his voice calm but unyielding. "This isn't your fight." Tank regained his footing, red-faced and furious. "You're dead, man!" "You're dead, man," he roared, charging like a bull. Behind him, Cobra had retrieved his knife, circling to flank Liam. To Liam, it was a training exercise. Each step calculated, every move precise. When Tank threw another wild punch, Liam intercepted, twisting the biker's arm into a joint lock, using him as a human shield. And Cobra froze, knife in hand, eyes darting between his trapped leader and Razor, still writhing on the ground. "Drop it," Liam commanded, applying pressure to Tank's arm. The biker grunted, knees buckling. "You want to dislocate his shoulder?" Liam warned. "Your choice." Cobra hesitated, then the knife clattered to the gravel. His hands went up, fear replacing his earlier bravado. "Don't hurt him, man," he pleaded. We're done." Liam nodded but didn't loosen his grip. "Good call. Police are on the way." The distant wail of sirens grew louder. Tank tried one last, desperate struggle, but Liam's grip only tightened. "You're breaking my arm," Tank whimpered, voice high with pain. "No," Liam replied, matter of fact. "If I were, you'd know." His tone was as steady as ever. "This is a standard joint lock. You could have learned it in any self-defense class." 2 squad cars screeched into the lot, lights flashing. Officers stepped out, hands on their holsters, but quickly assessed the situation. They knew Liam. He'd helped them out before. "Everyone okay here?" one officer asked, taking in the scene. One biker gasping on the ground, another shaking, hands up, and Tank still locked in Liam's hold. Liam allowed a slight smile. "Just a discussion about diner manners." He glanced at Tank. "Right?" Tank nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. His reputation was unraveling. All he wanted was to leave with his dignity intact. The officers moved in, handcuffing the bikers, gathering statements. Officer Rodriguez, a former Marine, watched with an amused smirk as his partner read the Iron Vultures their rights. It wasn't often local thugs got a crash course in humility, especially from someone who knew the meaning of real combat. Inside the diner, customers huddled around their phones, replaying the footage with wide-eyed excitement. The two truckers animatedly recounted the showdown to a few new arrivals who'd missed the action. Behind the counter, Martha poured fresh coffee, her hands steady now as she kept one eye on the parking lot where the police wrapped things up. "These clips are gonna blow up online tonight," one customer commented, showing his screen to a neighbor. "Look at the way he handled them. Didn't even throw a punch until they pulled weapons." At the counter, James quietly filled out his statement, his pen strokes as calm and measured as his movements earlier. Officer Rodriguez glanced at the form, noting the clear handwriting. No adrenaline tremors, no unnecessary details, just facts. "Textbook, Sergeant," Rodriguez remarked, eyes flicking from the paper to the parking lot. "Minimal force, all defensive. Gave him every chance to walk, huh?" He smirked, "Though I wouldn't have minded if you'd roughed him up a bit more. Those guys have been terrorizing the county for too long." Out in the lot, paramedics checked over the bikers. Razor grimaced with each breath, but would be fine. Snake's shoulder would ache for days, but James had been precise. Nothing torn or broken. Martha approached with a steaming slice of apple pie. "On the house, sweetheart," she said warmly. "After today, you've earned a lifetime of free meals here." The elderly couple who'd fled earlier returned, eyes wide with concern. They weren't the only ones. News had spread fast in the tight-knit community, and a small crowd gathered, curious to see the aftermath of the legendary showdown. Viper, now sitting on the curb in cuffs, asked to speak privately with Officer Rodriguez. The youngest biker's bravado had vanished, replaced by a shaky willingness to talk. "It wasn't supposed to be like this," he muttered, voice low. "I didn't sign up for real fights. I thought being with them would make me somebody." He nodded toward James. "That's real strength. Not this." James took a slow bite of pie, savoring the moment. "Never wanted trouble," he mused to Martha, "but bullies need to learn there's always someone stronger." He sipped his coffee, a ghost of a smile playing at his lips. "Your pie almost makes the interruption worthwhile, though." Martha laughed, relief finally settling over her. A boy pressed his face against the window, eyes wide with awe. He whispered something to his dad, who nodded and approached James with an outstretched hand. "Thank you," the man said, voice thick with emotion. "They've been squeezing my shop for months." Quote, "Never thought I'd see someone stand up to them." End quote. As the police cruisers rolled away, life at Lou's began returning to normal. But the air buzzed with a new energy. This story, the soldier who took down 3 bikers without breaking a sweat, would be told and retold, growing with each version until it became legend. By morning, the videos had gone viral. Millions of views, thousands of comments praising James's calm resolve. Local news stations ran the story on repeat, showing shaky clips from every angle. James woke to a phone full of missed calls and messages. His sister's voicemail played first. "Saw the video. Only you would take down bikers and then calmly finish dessert," she teased, half laughing. Even his CO had texted. "Nice work, Cooper. But maybe pick a quieter diner next time. At the station, Detective Martinez interviewed Viper, real name Tommy Wilson. The young biker's tough exterior had cracked. Snake ran everything, he admitted, eyes downcast. Foreseeing businesses to pay protection fees, thought it made us tough. But seeing him taken down like that made me realize what real strength looks like. Back at Lou's, Martha handled the busiest breakfast rush she'd seen in years. People from neighboring towns came to see the now famous Soldier's booth. She told the story on repeat. He even asked them to step outside, didn't want to mess up the diner, she explained, shaking her head. Then he finished his pie, left a tip, and walked out like nothing happened. Veterans groups swelled with pride. Many had faced the Steel Knight's intimidation, but feared making things worse. James showed them you could stand firm without stooping to their level. Around noon, James returned, surprised by the crowd. Hands reached out, phones flashed, but he stayed humble. Just did what anyone should, he told them. Right training makes all the difference. Martha saved his usual booth, beaming as she served his coffee. You won't believe it, she whispered. 3 other businesses called the cops this morning. They're reporting the Knights. No one's scared anymore. Lou, the diner's owner, approached, voice thick with gratitude. You did more than stop a fight, he said. You gave this town its courage back. You gave this town its courage back, Lou said, his voice soft with gratitude. Sometimes all folks need is to see someone stand up for what's right. James nodded, listening to the chorus of praise around him, though he didn't see himself as a hero. In his mind, he had simply done what any trained soldier would do: protect innocent people and avoid unnecessary harm. He hadn't been looking for attention or trying to make a statement, just wanted a quiet lunch and to keep the peace. But looking around at the smiling faces and newfound energy in the diner, he couldn't deny that sometimes the best victories are the unplanned ones. A week later, the impact of the showdown at Lou's Roadside Cafe was undeniable. The local police, using Tommy Wilson's information, arrested more members of the Steel Knights, effectively dismantling the gang's grip on the county. Business owners who had been paying extortion fees could finally relax. Many reported their best sales in months, and there was a renewed sense of community pride. James tried to return to his normal routine, but his peaceful anonymity had vanished. Each time he stopped by the diner, customers approached his table to thank him or share stories about their own run-ins with the Steel Knights. He listened patiently, nodding respectfully, though he quietly missed the days when he could enjoy a meal in peace. Looks like you'll have to get used to being a local celebrity, Martha teased, refilling his coffee cup. On the wall behind her hung a framed newspaper article about the incident, placed next to a photo of her son in his Marine uniform. The headline read, "Green Beret stands up to local gang, teaches respect without violence." Detective Martinez dropped by one afternoon, updating James on the case over a slice of apple pie. Snake and Razor are facing long sentences, she explained. Not just for what happened here, but for years of intimidation and extortion. And Tommy's made a deal. He's in a rehab program, talking about joining the military when he's done. She smiled, shaking her head. Says he wants to learn how to protect people the right way. You made more of a difference than you know. The story had even reached national media. A news crew visited the town, hoping to interview James. He politely declined, suggesting they focus on the local business owners who had suffered the most. Lou, ever the businessman, saw an opportunity and introduced the Soldier's Special, the burger and pie combo James had ordered that day. A portion of the proceeds went to a local veterans group, and it quickly became the diner's top seller. Never thought I'd be thankful for a brawl in my parking lot, Lou joked from behind the register. This is what reminds people what soldiers stand for. Back at the diner, Martha started a guest book where customers could write their thoughts about the incident. Many shared how James's actions had inspired them to stand up to bullies in their own lives. Local martial arts instructors even began offering free self-defense classes for business owners, teaching them how to handle threats safely. The town's newspaper ran a follow-up, interviewing business owners who described the shift in atmosphere. Fear had been replaced by hope and a renewed sense of strength. James returned to Lou's one evening, the diner quieter than usual. Martha brought him his usual coffee, her eyes warm with gratitude. "You've done more than you know, honey," she said softly. James looked around, seeing the subtle changes, the lighter laughter, the more confident conversations. "I didn't do anything special," he replied, taking a sip. "Sometimes all it takes is someone showing the way." Martha smiled. "Well, you showed it all right, and this town won't forget." As James walked out into the evening light, he knew life here would never be the same. But maybe that was the point. Sometimes the greatest victories weren't just about stopping the bad guys, they were about giving good people the courage to stand tall.